Welcome back to another episode of the College Football Pick'em Pod with Phil and Will, and we are back with, I guess, week 9, not episode 9, but week 9 of the college football season. Some of us would call it the first week of the Big Ten's true outright failure. Way to go, guys. Kevin Warren, give yourself a raise for pulling this off so impeccably. We have the Wisconsin-Nebraska game canceled, and they are not going to be able to make it up because they didn't have a contingency plan like all of the other conferences that have had to cancel games throughout. So that is my little vent about the Big Ten, but I just want everybody to know this is clearly an ACC podcast, considering we're both Miami guys. We'd even give a little bit of a pat on the back to the Pac-12 because Will's a Stanford guy, but the Big Ten showing what a joke you really are. Good job. Well, nice contingency plan. Glad to see you got it done. Poor Graham Mertz had a phenomenal first game against Illinois. One of my paid plays was Illinois plus 19.5. Well, I know you were on Illinois 19.5. Graham Mertz was just unbelievable in that game. Illinois just couldn't capitalize every time they got the ball into the red zone. But we're not going to get to see him again this week, and possibly not at all again this season, considering now Wisconsin is on a 3-week hiatus because of the Big Ten's rules, and because the Big Ten had no contingency plan. That would put them at playing about 4 games on this season at most. Well done, Kevin Warren. Go get a raise. Go be something else other than the AD of the Big Ten. You don't deserve it.
Nice
Thanks.
rant there. I agree with everything you said. It just sucks. And it's because like the Big Ten came back and we had some really fun games. I mean, that Indiana Penn State game was the best game in the entire college football weekend out of all the conferences. Wisconsin, like you said, looked really good. They were an exciting team. Michigan, wow. Really surprised by Michigan, really excited about it. I don't think we've seen an offense that strong in the Harbaugh era. And I know it's one game, but that was not a Michigan team we've seen. Ohio State's obviously back with Justin Fields. Just a lot of excitement in the way
Rutgers won. Come on.
What's that?
Rutgers won.
Rutgers with the win. So much going on and just so happy to have them back. And it just sucks because everyone saw this coming. If you have any sort of issues, your season kind of loses all of its credibility. Wisconsin is a team that could have won their division, faced Ohio State, maybe challenged them. And it's not just Wisconsin's season might be done. The whole conference just loses this because this isn't going to be the only game that gets canceled. Wisconsin's not going to be the only team that, has COVID cases. This is going to happen. Like you said, the bye weeks, just none. You're playing 8 straight weeks with no buys. You need buys in a season like this. And that's what all the other conferences were saying. Let's start earlier or on time so that we can have room to make up games and switch schedules around. Obviously, the Big Ten just waited and kind of got forced to playing. And then boom, no bye weeks. But then they have these, they're testing daily, every single day. And that's what's kind of surprising me about with this Wisconsin incident. I think that was one of the things the Big Ten really felt strong about. These other conferences are testing 3 times a week. And the Big Ten's no, if we're going to play this season, we have to test every day. And even with testing every day, that was their big hang up. They still have 6 players right now. I think so far it's been 6 players tested positive, including their 2 starting quarterbacks since Jack Cohn's out, plus their head coach and 5 other coaches. So 6 coaches, 6 players. And that's from just testing daily. So that clearly wasn't the solution. And then they have their threshold of 5% of your team can't play, then you have to go off. And so now 6 players. They don't have 100 players on their team. So 6 players, boom, you've hit the 5% threshold. Yeah. And now you can't play for some time. So this is, I don't see Ohio State being able to get maybe, I think they go 6-0, but I don't see them now being able to go 8-0 and really saying, okay, we have, honestly, it depends how it shakes out, but you want to see Ohio State in the playoff. But what if they go 4-0? There's a real chance they go 4-0. So it's a complete mess. It's a disaster. I was hoping this, they waited, they do daily testing, they figured out their plan. Maybe they'd be right. And we all thought they probably won't be because there's no contingency plan whatsoever. But hey, I wanted to see them be right. And they've completely proved us as we are now right. Everyone who was saying this was a bad idea.
Everybody. And it's one of those things where it doesn't even matter which side of the coronavirus you stand on. Oh, it's very serious. Or even if you're somebody who doesn't think it's very serious, it's one of those things that no matter what, when this season was going to start, we knew there were going to be games postponed because of coronavirus. Whether you're sitting at home going, it's so overblown, it doesn't matter. We knew that there were still going to be games that were going to be postponed no matter what because of the protocols that were put into play. So for the Big Ten, and this goes back to when they were talking about playing spring football, because, there's such a beautiful spring in the Big Ten states. In Michigan and Wisconsin, they just can't wait for February and March because it's so gorgeous there.
Flowers.
The flowers and the birds and bees and everything is singing, and there's just so much life, and it's not a frozen tundra at all. And you look at what they did, and they were going to play then. They were going to start then. The entire time since this pandemic started, we have been told there is going to be a second wave, and it is going to hit now. So what does the Big Ten do? They start their season now and claim that it's for safety reasons and don't give themselves any bye weeks. And now all of a sudden I'm reading articles before we go live here because I type in Wisconsin to see what's going on. And I'm reading articles that the AD of Wisconsin, Alvarez, is finding now that there's actually articles that are coming out and studies that are being shown about how the heart issue that's coming out isn't actually as big of a deal, and how now they probably shouldn't have to do the long thing. And
that came out before the Big Ten started, because that was why they were holding out, was that there was this cardiac mitosis. I really don't know.
Cardiomyocarditis or something like that.
And then
myocarditis.
Then it came out the doctor that was used in this study that was hired by the Big Ten and some of these schools, came out that, that actually wasn't really true. Some of it was true, but it wasn't all as dire as it sounded.
And my point is that it's funny how this article Alvarez wasn't quoting this article 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago or saying we should really, really evaluate. Now he's saying we should really reevaluate because he realizes he's about to lose a lot of money. So this was not about health. This instance is not about health because this article, like you just said, has been out for a long time. And now all of a sudden Wisconsin's if the rest of the Big Ten plays, we have a good team. We should have a chance to play the national title. Amazing how suddenly, maybe that's not actually as big. It's just crazy that it's coming out at a time where it's blatantly money related at this moment for Wisconsin, that maybe it's not as big of a deal. Then why did you put the protocols in the first place? I'm not here trying to say I would have come up with better protocols or anything like that. It's just that the Big Ten
could have. I think you just start earlier.
The Big Ten botched this so badly.
Yes.
So badly. And it's going to be interesting to see how they react to it now as we move forward, because one of my plays this week was going to be the over in the Wisconsin-Nebraska game. I thought that would be a fun over. Illinois should have scored points on Wisconsin. It just didn't happen. But now you can't even make that play. And we don't know what this season is going to look like as a whole. If you're out there trying to do a futures bet, you can't bet Ohio State to win the national championship because they just won't get enough games in.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. It's sad. It's a bummer. But the good news here, I guess, if we want to have any good news, is that we still have there's only been one Big Ten game canceled. We did get that slate in last weekend. We were having a fun season without the Big Ten. We said we didn't need them. So hey, if they go bye again, hey, fine by us. We can briefly recap last week if you'd like. I had another exactly 500 week. I went 7-7, and with my the dollar amounts, I also broke even on that. And you might be asking, well, if you go 7-7, you lose money on the juice, right, Phil?
That's what I would be asking. Yeah, Will, why aren't you losing money?
But I'm not losing money on the juice because I am betting in what I'm calling betting group chats, which is going to become something called Bet Buds. Check it out, betbuds.net. This is a project I've been working on. I know Phil plugs his picks every week, and he's been killing it in the NFL. He's been sending me his NFL props, and I am just making bank.
If you're betting $100 on every NFL, you're up $1,073 over the last 2 weeks. Just saying.
And the props have been really strong, and that's something great for the group chats that I'm in. Basically, I'll explain what this is. It's a group chat for sports betting, so you can bet with friends and friends of friends. And basically, you toss a bet out, just like typing a message, but you pick from the game lines, toss it out, and then your friends can take you on. And there's no juice, there's no vig, so you can go 6-5 instead of that being a borderline break even. You actually make your money. We all know how much juice takes. It's about 10%. to make money at a sports book, you got to go 52.4% win rate to just break even. And that's actually pretty high. But if you're betting with friends, if you go 51%, you're over the course of a season, you are going to make bank. So check out the link in the description, betbuds.net. We're going to release our first beta version next weekend for all the football games. But basically, it's just a fun way to casually bet on sports with your friends, with friends of friends. Phil and I are in a group right now on Facebook chat. I think I took Indiana against you, and I got you on that one, right?
You took yeah, you did take Indiana. I took Penn State. And you know what? I was looking good when they look. Okay, so here's another thing I got to say. And I know you're plugging BetBud, so I feel like that was a good plug. I got to say this. Has there ever been a weekend in the history of football where the bullshit let them score play worked in 2 instances? The Detroit Lions did it. And then they won the game on a last-second touchdown over the Atlanta Falcons. And the Indiana Hoosiers did it. They let Penn State score. Penn State scored. And Indiana forced overtime, won it in overtime. Has there ever been an instance where that has happened?
I think, yes. And maybe not twice, like one in NFL, one in college. But because in the NFL offenses are smarter than Todd Gurley is usually, where they know that. And usually you see it in college way more often. It works in college more often than you think. I mean, it is the right thing to do. Let them score. I say it all the time during Niners games to Kyle Shanahan, like yelling, just like, let them score so we can get the ball back. And it depends on the situation. But I'm always like, especially when an offense is totally in rhythm and they just got your number and your defense is winded, it's late in fourth quarter. It's like, okay, they're going to score anyway. Why not keep like a minute or two of clock for your offense when you get the ball back, especially if you don't have timeouts and all that. So yeah, it did. It was amazing to see that that get pulled off. And I won that bet against Phil. And I think maybe you would want another from me or something. But if we go even in a week, we both go even. We don't lose. I don't lose money. Phil doesn't lose money like you would if you were betting at a sports book. So again, betbuds.net. Check it out. Yeah, I think it's just a really fun way to casually bet with your friends and save money betting. Holy crap. I've been betting like this for like a year in a group chat, and it is so much fun. Yeah,
and for anybody who was wondering, Phil, how you doing on college football? It's why I owe Will money. I've been doing bad on college football. I mean, anybody who's been following over here on the picks, I just haven't been great. And, you know, you can follow my form site link in the bottom. For NFL, I've been working with somebody who does a model, and we have been crushing it. 8-3 in our last picks over the last 2 weeks, last 11 games we've picked, 8-3 with spreads and over-unders. Last week, we went 9-4 overall, including prop bets. So we had 6 bets against the spread, we had 5 bets against the spread, 1 over under, which is the Jaguars and Chargers, crushed the over. I mean, the Chargers almost did it themselves. And then on top of that, we had another 7 bets that were player props, and we went 5-2 in those bets. So we're really crushing it there. For college football, I think the model's having a little bit harder of a time catching up just because there's a lot of players and like a lot of different random things that go into this, especially at the beginning of this season. I didn't have a good week here. It's a little bit tougher, but we did go 500 over there. We've been 500 2 weeks in a row for college and 8-3 overall for NFL in the last 2 weeks. So, you know, when you're having a bad week and you're still going 500, that feels pretty good because, you know, one of the plays I had last week was Ole Miss +3. And you know what? Ole Miss should have won that damn game.
Yeah, they should have won. One.
That was a brutal loss. That was just a terrible, terrible loss, and it sucks that it happened that way. But we were sitting pretty on that one, and it ultimately just went south late. So let's get into this week's slate, though, and we have Thursday night games, we have Friday night games this week. One of the Thursday night games I do have is one of my paid plays, so I'm going to avoid that. That is in the South Alabama Georgia Southern game. I was on Georgia Southern last week against Coastal Carolina, and they did not cover. That's not a hint or anything. I'm just telling everybody. Will, do you have anything for this Fresno State, Colorado State? I know I think it's the first look we're getting at Colorado State, right? Fresno played last week, or am I saying that backwards?
No, I think you're right there, but I really am not paying too much attention. I usually like to get into these Thursday games, but nothing jumped out at me here. There's a couple games on Friday, and I do have a Friday play. So if we want to shift our focus to Friday,
let's just jump right to Friday then. What do you got for me for Friday?
So as you already mentioned, Rutgers won. Not only did they cover, but they won outright. They're 1-0, a winning record in Big Ten play. I'm not sure if that's ever happened before. So part of the podcast for me is going to be finding our new Rutgers. And there's a lot of candidates out there. I think Rutgers could still be that. I'm still not totally giving up on Rutgers, but them winning a game is certainly concerning.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm really eyeing Maryland right now as this team that could be the Rutgers, not only of the Big Ten, but of college football. And I think we'll get Bowling Green back here soon too. So that's another one where they're in their own territory in the MAC. But let's get into this. It's Minnesota at Maryland here Friday night. Minnesota I'm seeing my best number is at 19.5. So I'm taking the Golden Gophers minus 19.5. And I get that Minnesota didn't look that good against Michigan, especially on defense, but I never really had that much confidence in Minnesota's defense anyway. It was their offense I was really excited about, like Tanner Morgan getting back, and he really didn't look good against Michigan. Not at all. You could say he had a bad game. I think Maryland, is that not the perfect game to like get Tanner Morgan back in rhythm, get the offense back in rhythm? I see this one just, okay, you had Michigan, who was just a really tough matchup. Like I said, I think Michigan is better than they've looked in a really long time. I don't put too much on Minnesota for that. So they get this Maryland team who got spanked by Northwestern, 43-3. I mean, Maryland didn't show up on offense. They didn't show up on defense. This just seems like Minnesota needs to get their first win of the season, get right. Maryland, I don't know what they're doing. When you give up 43 points to Northwestern, something is seriously wrong with your defense.
Oh, yeah.
And when you can only score, Northwestern has historically had a pretty good defense, but I mean, their offense is usually one of the worst in the Big Ten. So here we go, 19.5. I do think this is a pretty easy bet. Last week, I was on, I think, 4 underdogs last week, and they all didn't cover. It was a very chalky week. I know I had said I'd taken Phil in Bet Buds in Indiana. I had taken that underdog, but I was on Baylor. They didn't cover. They had a lot of chances. Who else I was on? Minnesota, obviously against Michigan. It was not a good weekend for these underdogs, and I'm not going all favorites this weekend, but that just seems the way it's going. So I got Minnesota minus 19.5.
Yeah, I like that one as well. And I'm also on that, although the point spread at DraftKings is currently off because I was hoping that it would have moved maybe even down to minus 19 or something. I don't know why it's off. And that worries me a little bit because normally when something goes off, that means an injury or something is about to come into play. So if you can still get this at 19.5, I would take it as well. I do have that written down here. But if it goes up to like 21 or something, are you still confident in it? Or do you think, look, it's little Tua over for Maryland. It's Tua's brother, who is the quarterback for Maryland, who clearly is not as good as Tua.
He's never has been even considered. Like
No.
A lot of times you see siblings, it's like, is he as good as his brother? No one's even asking that question.
No.
So the fact no one's asking it means he's not in that.
He's
same
not.
ballpark.
And Maryland was actually a pretty fun team to watch last year, but that had a lot to do with the fact that they had oh my God, what's the name of the transfer from it was the transfer for Virginia Tech was their quarterback for most of the year, and he put up some points. I want to call him Justin Jackson, but I don't think that was his name. But anyway, he was pretty good as a quarterback for Maryland, which made them kind of fun, and they were a fun over team. Just don't think that's going to be the instance this year. And I do agree with you. I think Minnesota's defense wasn't that bad last week. I just think Michigan's offense was really good. I mean, we watched that whole game together, and it just felt like Michigan was outplaying them on the offensive side of the ball, was able to get explosive plays whenever they wanted. I don't foresee Maryland getting explosive plays on Minnesota. Like, I just don't see where that's coming from. That is my one Friday night play that I have for this week. I don't have anything else for Friday night, but I do agree with you on Minnesota at minus 19.5, but keep an eye on what's going on with the book there because I'm not sure why the line is off the board right now.
Yeah, I mean, I like this basically anything under 21, and maybe even if it's at 21, 20.5, I don't like it as much. But right now I'm seeing 19.5, so that number is what I'm rolling with. So yeah, last week I had Baylor +9. I had FSU +5. What a joke. I had Illinois, like we talked about, +19.5. So those underdogs, and also LSU, South Carolina +6 against LSU. That was one we liked, and that didn't work either. So it just was a terrible, terrible day for dogs. So
Yeah, I hear you, man. What else do you have on Friday?
Well, that's it for me on Friday.
Okay, good. So we only have one play there on Friday. Let's talk a Saturday here. Halloween. Things get a little spooky, maybe.
Unless, wait, is Coastal Carolina, Georgia State on Friday?
No, that is also on Saturday morning.
Okay. So I do have a play on this.
All right. Well, okay. We could start with Coastal Carolina, Georgia State. If you want to really ruin like talking about good games, go ahead. Let's talk about Coastal Carolina, Georgia State first.
Basically, Phil, you had said fade Coastal Carolina because they're ranked now, and all these teams, they get ranked and then lose. Well, I did listen to you. I tossed out that I would take Georgia Southern last week in my betting group chat, and I think 2 people took me on, and I lost both bets because Coastal Carolina, they looked really solid. Like, they were in control of that game. They ended up winning by 2 touchdowns. The cover really was not that close to being in question. And so I actually feel pretty strongly that they're not this fluky, undefeated team from one of these group of 5 conferences, but that they are the real deal and that they seem to be taking care of business. And they're playing a Georgia State team that really hasn't done all that much. I remember watching their game against Arkansas State, and they had pretty much no defense whatsoever. The total of that game, I think, was like 111 points. So I'm pretty confident Coastal Carolina is at least going to be able to score on Georgia State. Georgia State does have the ability to score themselves and put up big plays, but Coastal Carolina is the much more complete team. The number is only 2.5. So I am taking Coastal Carolina minus 2.5. Like, you're getting that under a field goal for this team that actually has been taking care of business. I know they now are ranked. This will be the 2nd week in a row, but I don't think they have any of those jitters. They look legit to me. So I got $10 on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand why you're taking that one. I'm not on it. The game was tied between Coastal and Georgia Southern going into the 4th quarter. So even though it ended as a 14-point win for Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, but even watching that game, it was like it was a fluky tied game. You could tell that Coastal Carolina was the better team and that things had really kind of gone Georgia Southern's way during that game.
I do not disagree. I would actually say, and I don't know, I'm trying to find out.
Watching it, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I might cover this. I can't believe I might cover this, knowing that, of course, Coastal Carolina is like, that wasn't the right side to be on.
You know what? So I'm looking right now, and I can't find it. But I would almost say a good bet in this game, come game day, would be the Coastal Carolina team over. Because they're only favored by 2.5. And I think Georgia State will score. But based on where this line is at, which it's at the over-under is currently at 59.5, which means that they're projecting what? I mean, what is that? That's 30. So they're projecting about 20. They're projecting about 30 to 28. 31, 28, something like that. So if they're projecting 31, 28, that means you're probably going to get Coastal at 30.5. I like Coastal over 30.5. I think their offense is going to do a number on Georgia State. The reason I'm not going to take this over is just in case Georgia State doesn't score. But the reason I'm not going to take this spread is because Georgia State at home, biggest game of their season by far. It is essentially their Super Bowl. They are going to have fans in the stands, and they get a home game against a ranked opponent. That does not happen very often in their history. So there is the potential that they could pull out the win. But if they pull out the win, both teams are getting into the 30s. And that's why if you can get Coastal at 30.5 or lower, I think you take Coastal Carolina's team over as a bet. And if you're okay with it, I would actually like to write that down because I know that is stuff that comes out throughout the week. So I'm going to put down Coastal team. And I think this is the first time we've ever done this. But I'm going to do, if I can get it at 30.5 or less, I want to do the over because I really do think that they're going to score a lot on Georgia State. And their offense looked pretty good against Georgia Southern when it mattered. And that's when they started to pull away. And they put up 28 on Georgia Southern, who's a much better defense than Georgia State. So
right. That's where I'm going with this. I do get what you're saying about it. It's like this big home game, ranked opponent, all that. But we see that a lot, and they get all excited, and then they just get run out of their own building. So,
I hear you.
All right, let's get to a game.
Let's talk real, huh?
Okay.
Let's talk real.
Where do you want to jump to?
Well, let's talk about Georgia versus Kentucky. Georgia's favored by 15. Will, you were on Kentucky last week, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
One of
didn't
my
go
favorites.
as
One of
planned.
my favorites that failed me. So when I was on the favorite, it lost. When I was on the underdog, it lost. I mean, actually, I went 7-7. So we're really bringing up all my losing plays here.
This is a toss up for me, and I kind of want to turn it over to you because I could have a play on this, but I kind of wanted to see what you thought first. I wanted to talk it out.
Sure.
Is Kentucky fake? Is Kentucky fake, or are they real?
I think they are real on defense.
Okay. So does that mean you're going to probably go under on this game?
Let me walk you through where
let's hear it.
Here. So the total for this game is set at 42.5. So really low. And so that is actually too low for me to go under, even though these are both under teams. That's why it's so low. And it makes sense. Both teams have really stingy defenses. But then you look at the spread, and it's 15 points. So 15 points in a game with a 42.5 total. So, I mean, that just seems insane to me that if we're going to have these two stingy defenses and if it's going to be this like punt fest, how is Georgia going to outscore Kentucky by 15 points?
They're thinking 28-13 is what the projected total is here, about 28-13, 28-14.
Yeah, 29-14, something.
They're projecting
like that.
field goals, essentially.
So I have to take Kentucky here just because I do think Kentucky's defense is pretty much right behind Georgia as I think they're the second best defense in the SEC. And teams that have played 4 or more games, and this is in the whole country, Georgia is 11th in yards per play on defense, and Kentucky is 13th in yards per play. So they are literally right there. And yeah, if we look at their offenses, I would give the nod to Georgia, but Georgia has had issues on offense all season long, and Kentucky is not the defense where you iron out those issues. I think this is a game where they're on the road. They just want to get in, get out with the W. They don't need to impress. They don't need to be flashy. It's going to be a physical, tough matchup. I see them winning by 7 points, 10 points, probably closer to that. But even, this is what I love, they could win by 2 touchdowns and Kentucky still covers. So while it's at 15, I really, really like this play. I got 15 on it.
I'm confused. I really am.
It is confusing, but that's just way too high when it's like, I don't you get that vibe that Georgia just needs to get this win, lock it up, burn some clock, just keep Kentucky from scoring, and they don't really need to take a risk on offense. I don't think you're going to see them throwing the ball down the field all that much. It's going to be just heavy running from both of these teams.
I'm doing the under. You've talked
okay.
about it. Yeah, it's a low number.
It would be the play, I think, would be the under, but I mean, it's such a low number that it does scare me.
And it is a very low number, and this was initially going to be my play anyway. I could see Georgia shutting out Kentucky in this game. The one game, which is such an outlier now because we've talked about Kentucky a lot on this podcast, probably given them more attention than we ever have in the past, just because without Pac-12 and with the Big Ten just starting, they were one of the more exciting teams to watch early. They lose 29-13 to Auburn in week 1. We have seen that Auburn really isn't that good, despite covering this week, whatever. I don't care. That game is right at 42 points. Then you have the Mississippi-Kentucky overtime thriller that ended 42-41 with Mississippi winning. That's your outlier. The next week, Kentucky wins 24-2 over Mississippi State. They beat Tennessee 34-7, and they just lost to Missouri 20-10. All of these games are going under 43. So I feel confident about that, except for the one game. I throw that one out the window because I think it was just a fluke. However, if you look at what Kentucky has been doing in terms of how they've been scoring against Tennessee, they had 2 defensive touchdowns, I believe, in that game. Against
2 pick sixes.
Yeah, against Mississippi State, they only put up 24. Against Missouri, only put up 10. I don't see them putting up more than 14 in this game. And I think that's even being a little generous. I think all of their points are probably going to come from field goals. And like you said, if Georgia gets up, they ran the ball very effectively against Alabama in the game they lost. It just that interception by Stetson Bennett screwed them.
Which is good. I mean, Kentucky has a better defense than Alabama. So, I
agree with that.
That's why I'm so, I think
it's got to go under.
Scores defensive touchdowns or, Georgia looked kind of good against Alabama. They were leading at halftime. Yeah, but those mistakes can still happen in this game. And I think, I don't know, I'm looking at like a 17-9. This is really what I'm looking at. I think I would play the under. It's just such a low number, and you might like pick sixes are terrible. The worst thing that can happen if you have an under. The best thing that can happen if you have an over, because it's an instant score, and then the team that's getting the ball back is like pissed. They want to, get the. So when you have two teams that can get pick sixes, that under does scare.
But I really feel like that's the only way that Kentucky's going to score a touchdown in this game. I'm not convinced with their offense. I think Georgia's going to handle them, and I could see this game ending 28-10 or 28-7 or something like that. You know what I mean? And then Georgia covers and the game still easily goes under. I think Vegas is really looking at Kentucky to not score 14 points in this game. And you know what? I'm not completely sold on Georgia's offense that they're going to be able to score 20 in this game. So I do agree with you on the plus 15. That's where I would lean. But
21 is like where you're kind of like, is Georgia going to crack 20 against Kentucky? Then how on earth are they going to cover 15 unless they get the shutout, of course?
Yeah, which 21-0 is in play. But
yeah, I think we're seeing the same things, but picking different bets. So hey, take your choice on that one. I like going with the points. 15. It's a lot.
Michigan State. Yes, Michigan looked great. Michigan State sucked, but I'm throwing this out there as a trap game, and don't bet it. But do you disagree? Are you about to come in all over Michigan?
I'm not touching this game.
Okay, good.
With the 10-foot pole, my friend. This one, I mean, it's the tail. It's like Michigan State loses to Rutgers, Mel Tucker's first game as head coach, and I mean, Michigan State, they're in shambles right now. This is terrible. And it's like they have a new coach, so you can give them time. It's a crazy season. It's like the worst place Michigan State has been when you lose to Rutgers. And then you have Michigan, who we've been talking about. Man, they look the best we've seen them in the Harbaugh era, maybe. And it's a rivalry game. It's so primed for a trap. I mean, just nothing surprises me when you think of outcomes. Like a Michigan blowout, well within the possibility. Michigan State winning wouldn't really surprise me that much. So it's just when there's all these outcomes, you stay away.
I agree, man. I agree. And that's what I wanted to kind of stress here. Don't bet this game. This game is such a trap, and anything can happen. It's a rivalry.
And the spread, I think, is like pretty, what is it?
25.
So yeah, it's like, okay, Michigan could win by 21 and you took Michigan and you're like, oh, well, they did blow them out, but the number's so high. But then if you take Michigan State, thinking, oh, it's a rivalry game, they'll cover at least. Michigan could win by 28. I mean, there's just too many ways this can go. If you don't, at least for me, I don't have a good read on either team, and we've only seen them each play one game, and they're so opposite that you think, okay, Michigan has to come back down to earth. Michigan State can't be that bad, but we just don't know. So yeah.
I agree. I totally agree. All right, so we're avoiding that one. Will, do you have anything else in this 9 a.m. slot? It's actually a pretty thin window this week.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I do want to at some point move to the Big 12. I got a couple I can kind of go back to back with.
Well, let's hear it. Go ahead.
I'm not sure what time this is, but this is the Iowa State Kansas game.
That's an early game. So
okay. So I already mentioned that Maryland might be the new Rutgers, but we might already have the new Rutgers in Kansas. I've faded Kansas every chance I've had so far on this podcast this season, and it's been working out. They are 0-4-1 against the spread. So for me, I'm not going to stop. It's at 28. So I think most places it's 28.5, but on
DraftKings is 28.
28. Yeah, MGM is 28. So I'm going to go with 28. And it's just like I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to hop off Kansas until I see any sign of life from this team. They do not. It's like they don't want to be there. They don't want to play. I was on Kansas State last weekend. That was an easy cover. I think it was like 55-7 or something. Mm-hmm. And Iowa State, I've been mentioning this a lot with the Big 12 just because there's only 9 teams in that conference, and the top 2, it's round robin. I think everyone plays everybody, and then the top 2 battle it out. Like Iowa State is firmly in contention in the Big 12. They're 3-1 right now. They've already played Oklahoma and beaten Oklahoma. So for them, this is like it's no time to get sleepy here. Out of all the Kansas plays so far, I think the books are definitely starting to head in the right direction where instead of 21 points that we had been seeing, it is now 28 points. So they've added that touchdown, but one touchdown when Kansas has just been getting blown out by like 40 points, 50 points in the past few games. Like that doesn't bother me, not yet. So I got Iowa State covering 28 points, $15 on it.
I like it, man. I like it. I'm not going to take it because I will be honest with you. I did not put myself through watching the Kansas game last week, and I think you had it on one of your laptops as we sat next to each other.
The one that was opposite of you.
Yeah, I didn't look once. I was definitely watching more of that Ole Miss game, wanting to die.
It just kept coming. Like I think they were up like 14. It was going into halftime. I was like, okay, and then they like. There's like a muffed punt, or they returned a kickoff like right. I think Kansas kicked a field goal, and then they're like kind of getting back into it, and then Kansas State just returns the kickoff. The half ends, and I mean, it was over. It was fun, man. It was fun to see Kansas State just keep laying on, which actually brings me to my next game in the Big 12. This is why I wanted to go back to back. So I don't know if you have anything on this. This is Kansas State and West Virginia.
I don't have anything, but I knew you were going to go here.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on Kansas State all season long. I've been fading Kansas, and I've been on Kansas State, and that's honestly been it's the only thing that's worked out for me. There's so much that's gone wrong. To me, this line is crazy because Kansas State is an underdog here, and I know they're on the road, but plus 3.5 Kansas State. I got $20 on this. West Virginia just lost to Texas Tech last week, who I thought was the number 8 team in the Big 12, just ahead of Kansas, the only team. And I'm just confused by this line. I think the only reason this line is is because Kansas State lost their, senior starting quarterback and Skylar Thompson. But now I think it really worked out for Kansas State that they had their backup come in, who's a true freshman, Will Howard. Shout out Will, go Wills. And he came in the TCU game, secured the win for them, even though he didn't look that good. But then he got a full game against Kansas to kind of build his confidence, get in rhythm. He went 17 for 24, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. So it's not like he's coming in cold here. And then West Virginia what have they done this season? Kansas State, again, 4-0 in the Big 12. I know they had their Sun Belt loss like every Big 12 team did in week 1, but within the Big 12, they are 4-0, first place. Like right now, if there was a Big 12 championship game, it would be Kansas State versus Oklahoma State. So this is a huge game for them, and they're getting points. They're getting 3.5 points. So even if
they're actually getting 4 now, it's moved.
They're getting 4. It's the only reason here has got to be because of the quarterback play. And I don't think Will Howard is all that much of a downgrade as people are saying. I know he's a true freshman and was a senior. Maybe there's something new in West Virginia legislature that is allowing fans in the stadium like all of a sudden. And now people are like, whoa, that stadium's going to be packed and they're allowing 100% capacity. Is there anything to that? Because this line is just so confusing to me for a Kansas State team that's 4-0 in the Big 12 versus a West Virginia team that, what are they?
Well, let me ask you, Will.
1-2? Like, what are they? I know
when West Virginia hosted Kansas, they had 25% attendance. What was the final score of that game?
I mean, they covered.
Let me see.
They covered.
They beat Kansas 38-17. So yeah, but again, so they beat Kansas 38-17. This is a team that's going to give up points to Will Howard. Like they're going to give up points to Will Howard if they give 17 to Kansas. So
what was that final score?
38-17.
And then Kansas Kansas State, who just played Kansas last week. What was that final? I think it was like 55.
Yeah.
55-14.
It was ridiculous. You were laughing really hard.
I was. It was fun.
Yeah.
So, I mean, unless I'm not seeing something, the Big 12 has been good to me so far. I'm sticking with these Kansas teams.
All right, let's go to the next slot here, which is actually just one game. It's 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern. And I need to make a play on this. I'm sorry. I need to do it. It is there is no reasoning except when you see a number this big, no matter who is playing, you bet the under. Unless it's the Florida Gulf Coast versus Lipscomb. Atlantic Sun Championship 2018, when it was the easiest over of all time. Vegas set it at 180. It hit that halfway through the second half. This is college basketball I'm talking about. Halfway through the second half with 10 minutes left, we were already at 180. It was the most ridiculous basketball game I've ever watched. I crushed it. Unless it's a game like that, you always take the under when a number is this ridiculous. And right now, Houston and UCF is at 82 points.
82.5 is where I'm seeing it.
82.5 points. Okay. Houston and UCF at 82.5. Will, correct me if I'm wrong, but since we've been doing this podcast, this is the biggest over-under that we have ever seen. Pre-game, not live betting, but pre-game.
Right. No, pre-game. I feel like the UCF, like Memphis game, like those games always are in like I feel like those games might have been. I think
I took an over on them last year, and it was like 70 something.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's usually more in the high 70s if we see something crazy. I mean, last week I did the same kind of principal play with Auburn and Ole Miss. That was at 72.5. I took under on that, and that went under pretty darn easily. Mm-hmm. I think it was at 70 when I did the podcast, but when I bet it in my group chat on BetBuds, I got it at 72.5 before kickoff. So that was an easy under, and that was 10 points lower than what we're getting here. So continue, Phil. I am on this too.
Okay, so here's the other thing too. This line opened at 76.5 and has moved up almost a full touchdown. When that happens, and I wish, obviously, we only do this podcast once a week, but I wish that we could have middled this because this is a perfect middle. You take it over 76.5, get the 11 touchdowns, and then take it under 82, and you have now given yourself a 6-point spread to end the game. That's a huge deal, man. That is insane. That is massive. And so this just keeps going up. I get that UCF's defense is horrible. I have bet Houston or against Houston the last 2 weeks. One of my paid plays 2 weeks ago.
I've been in all three of their games. I've
BYU.
watched all three of their games.
Their offense is not that good. And so what I'm concerned about is, yes, this game is going to be explosive and there's going to be points but 42 to 35, this goes under by 6 points. With 42 to 35. Yeah, no, this goes under by 6 points. With 42 to 35. That is a totally reasonable high-scoring shootout. 42 to 35. 42 to 38, Will. Add the field goal in. Somebody scores a touchdown late, down 38-35, wins at 42-38. We still go under. You cannot bet an over that is this high. Get in on it as soon as possible before it's eventually going to drop back down below 80. Sharps are not going to let this stay this high.
Like there's more people on 80 over 82.5.
Well, it's minus 114 where I'm seeing it. 82.5. The juice is on the over.
Crazy.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm with you here. This is an over. Like if this was 2 years ago with that UCF team and that Houston team, then I might take the over in this. But these aren't the same teams. They just aren't. They're not the teams that like score every time they get the ball anymore. Like you see these teams punting more often. Their defenses are maybe a smidge better. They're just not as sharp and explosive on offense. So, especially with UCF, because I've been watching them too, they're averaging 44 points a game. But if you look at who they've played, because they're in the American, they've avoided so far Cincinnati, SMU, and Houston. Mm-hmm. So 3 of the top 4 teams in the American. I'd say the other top 4 team would be Tulsa. And they lost to Tulsa, and they only put up 21 points against Tulsa. Mm-hmm. So it's not like they've been playing the top ranks of the American anyway, and they're only putting up 44 points. I know that's still a high number. Yeah. Then you look at Houston, and that's just a team. Again, you're just used to them putting up 50 points, but none of their 3 games this season have gone over 80 points.
Yeah.
So it's a brand thing, man. It's a brand. It's just UCF.
I completely agree with you.
And these aren't the same teams that we've been accustomed to seeing, at least what I've seen so far.
I 100% agree with you, and I think you got to go with the under here. I mean, look, UCF just played Tulane last weekend.
How much do you have on this? I got 15.
I have 15 as well. It's a total whatever play. Like it's just like it's principle. It's a principle play. Last week UCF knocked off Tulane 51-34. UCF is not scoring 50 points against Houston this week. And even if Houston scores 50 against UCF, I don't think UCF's going to put up that many against Houston. Houston's defense hasn't been that bad. And in that BYU game, the Friday night game from a couple weeks ago, they were leading going into the late third quarter or even into the fourth quarter. And yeah, they lost by 19, but their defense played pretty good against the BYU team that is a million times better than this UCF team. UCF, the ship has sailed. The whole national championship, fun, undefeated, will they lose a game type thing. It's like what happened with Boise. They had their great years. They fell off. They came back a little. They fell off. That is what's going to happen to UCF now. Good for them. They were in the public spotlight for long enough. They are not a very good football team this year. I think they're going to lose to Houston, and I do not understand why this spread is how it is. So actually, Will, I also am taking Houston +3 in this game because I just think Houston is the better team here.
Wow. I didn't expect that. You're hopping on Houston also. I think that definitely is the right side of things. It's tough. This is one of these games. I think it's going to get a little crazy. There will be points. Again, just because we're saying under 82.5 doesn't mean we're saying it's going to be like a 45-point total or like 60-point total. I think it still gets into the 70s. So there will be points in a shootout like this. It is kind of hard to gauge on the spread, especially when Houston's only played 3 games. And UCF, like I've been saying with their schedule, I don't have a great gauge of how good they are. Things are kind of getting messy there. I don't know. I don't feel strongly either.
I do. Way. That's why I took it. Where are you going next, Will?
So we can either go SEC or Big Ten. I'm actually not on any ACC games this week because they all confuse the crap out of me. So maybe if you want to head to the ACC.
For my paid plays, 3 of the bets are ACC games. So I'm glad to hear that you have no confidence in me.
It's not no confidence in you. It's no confidence in myself or these teams to play as they've been. Like it seems like it's the same thing we see every year. It's the coastal ACC madness, but now it feels like it's the whole conference where one week a team looks great and the next week they look terrible and vice versa. And there's just it's so tough to gauge.
Are you trying to tell me the Canes looked terrible last week, Will?
They did look terrible. They looked terrible. I think they were lucky to get out with a win. And I know Miami's not playing this week, but I kept yelling at the TV, like, you better watch out. Like they were playing like they had like a 14-point lead or like a 2-possession lead. They were up like 6 and then up 3 or 4. It was just no urgency to get the job done to seal the deal. I worry about coaching a ton for Miami. Like that cannot be the way when you're at home in an 8 p.m. game like that. You like under the lights, like you gotta find some energy. I know Virginia's a sleepy opponent, but it worries me, man. Them going on the road for a noon start with no fans in the audience on the ACC network again. Like this team should be able to run the table the rest, and hopefully Notre Dame slips up. In addition to their loss at Clemson, I don't know what the tiebreaker would be if Notre Dame and Miami both went out with their only loss being to Clemson. But that's what
Notre Dame's going to lose more than that, so it'll be fine.
Okay.
Notre Dame, what's going to ultimately end up coming down to is who's going to beat UNC. Because I think UNC is going to
I don't think Miami is in that great of I think they have more talent and they have all capability in the world of beating UNC, but the way they have looked, like we saw it a little bit against Pitt and then last week against UVA. It's like they don't want to be there. They don't want to. It's just it's sad. It's sad football. And thank God we got out with the win. But it was going to be one of those things. Like Virginia was going to score a touchdown eventually. And we were going to be losing. And then we'd try to, whoa, we're losing, freak out, maybe come back and win it or have a heartbreaking loss. Thank God that didn't happen. But man, get it together, Canes.
I completely agree.
Get them together, Manny Diaz. This is a coaching thing through and through.
And it's a shame because of how fun we looked at the beginning of the year. That last game really felt like a revert back to the last couple of seasons where the defense plays great and the offense doesn't do anything. And the offense just didn't look inspired. The rushing attack, the offensive line was horrible. There was nothing there. I mean, De'Aaron King was getting hammered the entire game, which is a shame.
But
So
maybe they don't want to play Clemson again. So like, let's lose one of these so we don't have to play Clemson again.
lose a respectable
line.
one. Don't lose to Virginia.
Yeah.
So anyway,
maybe they just want to get out
but
of the
yeah,
way.
I do have 3 plays on the ACC, but they're all my paid plays. So I'm happy to hear that we don't have to talk about them and I don't have to pretend to not have a read. So
if you're an ACC fan, check out Phil's picks.
Yeah, the form site link is in the bottom.
Sign up for Bet Buds and then start betting with your friends, commission free.
Yeah, with my picks. You can use my picks for no commission. How good does that sound?
You're going to be making a ton of cash. Bet Buds won't be out this week, but just sign up, get your email in there so we can let you know when we do release it.
Absolutely.
So,
all right, I'm assuming is your other game LSU Auburn?
I have a lot of other games, but yes, I am.
No, but when you were saying let's go to SEC, is one of them LSU? Because I do have a play on the LSU Auburn game, so that's what I just want.
Let's go to it. You can kick it off.
You want me to kick it off? Sure. All right. Man, LSU looked good last week, huh?
They good.
Kicked the crap out of South Carolina. Man, Auburn looked exactly how Auburn has always looked this season. They looked average and somehow snuck away with a win. The ball hit his mother effing hand, Will. It hit his hand. It hit his hand. It hit his hand. It hit his hand.
I love how the announcers, too, kept going back to it.
Oh.
Like, are they really? Oh, they're not going to look at it. I mean, it did hit his pinky. Like, the ball moves.
Look at the ball change trajectory.
And then they kept bringing it up. Like, even when there was no chance they were reviewing it, like plays later.
And then on the next play,
drives later,
he fumbled. His knee didn't hit the ground. He fumbled. And it was recovered by Ole Miss. So for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, Auburn kicked the ball, or Ole Miss scored a touchdown to tie the game. It went to Auburn. It hit the Auburn player's hand and then rolled into the end zone. Ole Miss picked it up, and the refs claimed it never hit Auburn's hand. They had plenty of time to look at it upstairs. It's something that's automatically reviewed because it would have been a fumble and all of that. And they never did anything with it, and it's so blatant, and that changed the course of the game.
Closely. I feel like they took one look, we're like, oh, we're not going to look at it. When it's like, why don't you even take the time to like review it when we spend so much time on like these little calls? It's like this would be a game-changing call, and you don't even like give it the time of day. It was so weird, and it's happened now like 2 games like this with Auburn. So I don't know what's going on.
And they get lucky, and it's frustrating, and it's annoying, and it really makes me want to take LSU this week. Will, I want to ask you, what do you like in this game?
I do like LSU -3. The way Auburn,
I do too. I have 10 on it.
You can't rely on the refs to miss a call to win a game. And I get it's Auburn, and that's kind of like they eke out wins in these weird ways. That's kind of the way they've been with Gus Malzahn. But I think more importantly than Auburn, whatever, I don't think that they can get another call like that. They might. It's LSU is what the story is here. Like they have TJ Finley now. They have their receivers who were super inexperienced. Like all the seniors last year went to the NFL, or Jamar Chase, who opted out of this season, who's going to be an NFL stud. So we had a really inexperienced receiving core for this team. Now they're 4 games in. We have TJ Finley, who looks like he can throw the ball pretty nice. And it seems like this offense is just totally clicking, and South Carolina doesn't have that bad of a defense. It's not like they went and did that to Vanderbilt. They actually did do that to Vanderbilt, and we didn't care because it was Vanderbilt. But now that they've done it against South Carolina, I mean, again, this is a team right now in LSU that seems to be trending up, and that Auburn is just disgusting trash Auburn. So, yeah, I got LSU -3. I'm also on the over here. So I'll let you, if you want to talk spread or over under.
The over was going to be one of my actual paid plays for this week, but it
got too high.
It's gone. It just keeps going up,
yeah.
And I just can't do it. And that's what ended up backing me off of it. I would lean over for sure, because like I said, I was going to do it. I saw it at 62.5 at the beginning. It's up to 66 now. It's a big jump, and it went through 63, and then it kept. So I don't know, for 66 points with Auburn team that could score nothing, with an LSU team that could do nothing.
Even though Auburn has a bad offense, like they still find ways to score in like weird ways. And a lot of the time it's just Bo Nix again, hucking it up to Seth Williams. And Seth Williams might be the best receiver in all of college football. I mean, he just like inhales the ball. And that keeps drives alive, and they score touchdowns, they kick field goals. Their defense gets them good field position a lot of the time. So I don't think LSU is that scary on defense, even though they did look like they were improving against South Carolina. So for me, it's like I think Auburn still can crack 30 here, but I also think LSU is going to cover this spread. So that puts it at 66 pretty easily there, unless it's like 33-30. But I imagine LSU finds the 40s here. I really think their offense is looking good, and Auburn's defense, again, like they're not that typical Auburn defense that we think about. Ole Miss, they put up 28 on them last week when it should have been more. It should have been 35.
Yeah, I agree. I got LSU -3. It's my play here. It makes me. I wanted to do it. I mean, I just don't trust Auburn.
I have 10 on each of these plays. So
okay.
I'm not. These aren't like my favorite bets of the week, but this is a game I'm gonna love to watch. So I got to have some action. And LSU, I do like the spread more so than the over/under. But I still think the over is LSU overs right now. I think they're 3-1 on the season. The only one that didn't go over was when they beat Vandy, I think 41-7, and the over/under was set at 50. And so that's just because Vandy didn't score and they never score. So that actually could take me into my next pick if we want to go with Vandy.
Yeah, I love it. I have Ole Miss -16.
I saw it 16.5, but I will gladly take it at 16.
Yeah, it's at 16 now. It's dropping the wrong way.
Yeah, maybe even let it sit a bit. Maybe it goes down to 15. I mean, I know Ole Miss isn't that good, but they're on a 3-game losing streak coming off this Auburn loss that we've been talking about, where they should have gotten the W. And it's just a sweet spot for Ole Miss to get the lane train going. Let the offense cook, let it fly. I see the massive blowout here. Vandy's last 2 games have had the exact same score, 41-7. Wouldn't be surprised if we see 41-7 again. Yeah. I'll take it.
Vandy's got no offense. They got no defense. And I think Ole Miss is just going to run all over. Look, Ole Miss might be Rutgers. Yeah, they really might. I mean, look, Ole Miss looked pretty good in that Auburn.
Exactly. That's a game. They played well enough to win.
And I think people are going to be scared away because of the final score. They're going to beat Vandy bad here. And I would stay away from the over-under because, like Will said, this could end 41-7, or Ole Miss's defense could give up 21 points to Vanderbilt and still cover this spread. So I would stay away. 21. Yeah, seriously. The over-under is at 64. Yeah, the problem is when you have 2 bad teams playing each other, if Ole Miss is going to win this game, they're going to want to win it by 35 points because this is their one chance to really beat up on a team and get their frustrations out. So I don't want to take the under because they might put up 63 themselves. I've had a lot of bets this week. I have 2 more left. So I don't know how many more you have. You said you had a lot. Virginia Tech over Louisville. I love VT here at -4.
I thought you were saving your ACC games for the premium.
I have 3 ACC games for that, but I do have the Virginia Tech game here. Virginia Tech over Louisville. This is a quick one. Louisville's just schizophrenic. They're not very good. And Virginia Tech, they're coming off a loss last week, which I correctly predicted them against Wake. I think Wake is actually a pretty underrated team right now. So I liked them there. I think Virginia Tech's defense is a little sketchy, but Louisville, I get that they just beat the living daylights out of Florida State. Virginia Tech is way better than Florida State, and I think that Virginia Tech is going to come out in this one really small. I can't believe it's only 4 points. They're going to Louisville. Maybe that's part of the reason, but this was a team that was ranked just 2 weeks ago.
Louisville looks so good against Florida State.
I don't care. I mean, I saw it.
That beat UNC, the UNC team that's 16th in the country or whatever. I mean,
I know.
I just can't deal with the ACC because I just don't know. I don't know what we're going to get. Louisville could blow the doors off VT.
Things start to level out as the season goes on. At the beginning, there's always chaos at the beginning, and it's always frustrating. And then you back off.
It never settles, and now it's like the ACC overall with Florida State and Louisville going up and down. I mean, Georgia Tech got smashed by BC, and it's like, I'm not going to take Notre Dame this week because I don't trust that Georgia Tech's not going to put a fight to Notre Dame and cover that 20 points. It's like I looked at all these games, like I can't trust a team to act a certain way, to perform.
I'm going to tell you this right now. I would take Virginia Tech all the way up to 6.5 here. Getting the touchdown so that you're under the touchdown, that would put you at +118 instead of the -112. I seriously don't think you're going to be in bad shape doing that. I think Virginia Tech's going to blow the doors off Louisville. They're coming off a loss. They need this win. And I think they're going to get it against an inferior Louisville team that when they play, when they played Notre Dame, I mean, Notre Dame, they only were able to score 12 points, but Virginia Tech's offense might at this point actually be better than Notre Dame's offense. I mean, there's really
Notre Dame puts up like 45 against Pitt.
But that's what I'm saying, though. They're starting to figure it out. Things are starting to make more sense. I really do believe that.
Confuse me even more. Like I said, I'm not on any ACC games this week. I will watch the ACC. I enjoy the chaos. Maybe I'll learn something. Maybe we can pick up on something. But to me right now, this is as crazy because usually it's just Coastal. Mm-hmm. And then the Atlantic, you kind of know what those teams are about. This time around, man, I got no clue what's going on.
I hear you, man. But I got VT -4, and then I only have one more play, which I'm assuming you're probably going to be on. So what else do you have, Will? Let's let you just roll through a little bit here.
All right. Have we talked about Rutgers at all in this? Have I mentioned Rutgers?
You talked about them at the beginning. You love them. They're your favorite team.
I'm still fading Rutgers here. I get it. They won a game. We should all be happy for them. I'm excited that Rutgers won because now we get this spread at only 10 points. I mean, if Rutgers loses this game and Indiana is just coming off the win against Penn State, this is at like 21 points, 24 points. I mean, who knows? So the fact that this is only at 10, I think Rutgers playing Michigan State in the first game is the perfect way for Greg Schiano to start off his career at Rutgers.
Whenever he hits the hour mark, he freezes. This is amazing. Why does it happen at an hour every time? Maybe it's because the gods don't want him to talk about Rutgers, but it's funny. It's almost like his bandwidth can only handle 1 hour. I will start to fill in for him because I don't know what happened, but I will say this. Rutgers, Will, are you back or are you still? No, you're still frozen. Unless you just really darn blinking, which would be insane. But Rutgers at +10 against Indiana is a really funny line because Rutgers was 10-point underdogs to Michigan State and won the game by 11 and looked great doing it. The game was never in doubt. And somehow that turns around and makes Rutgers like a good team that should only be 10-point underdogs at home against a ranked opponent. You're telling me Rutgers should only be a 10-point underdog against a ranked opponent. Remember, New Jersey does not have fans in the stands for anything right now. New Jersey, I don't think is allowed to have Thanksgiving this year. That's where my family lives. They told me they're not allowed to have turkey or something. They only can eat ham or whatever the hell the governor there is telling them that they can and cannot do. So there's no home field advantage. Indiana's, they're coming off an emotional win, but like ride the wave and beat the crap out of a team that isn't as good as what the first game looked. They just played a team that really wasn't good. So I don't actually have anything on this game, Will. I was just trying to talk as if I was you.
I mean, that's kind of what I'm saying. It's just basically like, I don't even think Indiana is that good. I get they beat Penn State, but Indiana didn't like, whoa, look at this Indiana team. I think Indiana has lots of issues, but we're forgetting how bad Rutgers is. And this Michigan State team is such an anomaly. Again, first-year head coach in Mel Tucker with a program that's going through a ton of changes in a season with, no training camp, no spring ball, all of that. And I know Rutgers also had a new coach, and they had a lot of transfers come in. And I think Rutgers is an improved team, but I don't think that means, okay, they won one game. Now they're just going to be contending in a lot of these Big Ten games. I still think you here, unless this is a trend and Rutgers wins this game again, or they win a third game, or they cut. Like, I'm not going to – Rutgers will do this every now and again. You'll lose. But you got to trust the process overall, and that will reward you. So you can't hop off the Rutgers train now. Indiana, -10. I'm going $20. This is my $20 bet of the week. I think it's my only one. It's the only way to play this. Oh, Kansas State +4. I also have 20 on that.
Look, I hear you. I just worry that what if Penn State really isn't that good? And what if Indiana's win over Penn State really doesn't actually mean anything? And they actually come out and they lay an egg because it's such an emotional win, overtime win.
I still think Penn State is pretty good.
So you're not on Ohio State -12 this week?
No, I'm not. I'm on Penn State.
See, I am. I'm on Ohio State.
Oh, here we go.
I love it. I'm on Ohio State. I think Ohio State's going to beat the crap out of them.
All right, go ahead, Phil.
And I think a big reason for this, and I'm not kidding, is the fact that Wisconsin is not playing. And I think it's a wake-up call to the entire Big Ten that you got to win, and you got to win big when you play, because you might not have many opportunities. And do I think that this whole 3-week rule is going to stay in effect throughout the season? No, I don't. I think it's going to disappear quite quickly now that all these other teams are playing after having 7 days off, 10 days off. Nobody's dying. Nobody's being hospitalized in terms of college football players.
It's like if we're getting these breakouts and all across all sports, like the Marlins had their big breakout. The
Justin
Titans
Turner tested positive in the game last night.
Yeah, I mean we've seen this now in sports. What younger athletes, what happens when they get it? Most of them are asymptomatic. Some have mild symptoms. I could be totally wrong. I have not heard of a hospitalization due to COVID from these athletes. And more so, I haven't heard of a coach getting it and then being hospitalized or in the ICU or anything like that. And if that were happening, then I would be way more concerned. I'd be way like, why are we playing this season? I would say probably pack it up, guys. This is too risky, especially for the coaches and their families. But from what we've seen with these returns in sports and these teams getting positive COVID testing, it just hasn't led to dire circumstances. It really hasn't gotten close. And a lot of times you're seeing, I don't know if these tests have been verified. I imagine they have been. But like, remember that day the whole Colts team tested positive, and then like 3 hours later, they're all false positives.
Yeah.
And they have the resources to do that. Nick Saban was able to get 3 additional tests. But it's just, I think the Big Ten at some point is going to say, well, with what we have in place right now, we will not have a season. Mm-hmm. And from what
it's not for safety reasons. Like it just doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. And again, the whole thing always goes to, you guys remember when Kevin Durant had COVID? Like Ezekiel Elliott had COVID. I mean, a lot of players get it, but then they never tell us like, oh, they were fine or they didn't feel it. Cam Newton had COVID and is playing football 2 weeks later. You know what I mean? So Justin Turner had it yesterday and was playing in the game. I'm not saying this is the case for everyone. I'm just saying when you're a young and healthy athlete, we haven't seen an instance of it being really bad. And now that myocarditis, miraculously, this paper that's been around for 2 months is coming out because Wisconsin now wants to push to play their games because money. Now, all of a sudden that this is coming out, I just think that the rules and the regulations and the protocols that have been set forth by the Big Ten are going to change very quickly. But until it's official, these teams need to beat each other very, very badly in order to have any shot at making into the playoff, because the odds of them playing an 8-game season is plus 100,000. You are not going to get a full Big Ten season this year. And I would almost be willing to bet that 1 or 2 teams are the only ones who actually play an 8-game season. And I can't even say one of those teams would be Nebraska, who seems ready to play no matter what the hell happens, because Nebraska is not playing this week. So that's my take on this. I don't think anybody's going to do it, and that's why I like Ohio State. If they want any shot at playing in the national championship in the college football playoff, they need to beat every single team they play, even if it's only 5 games, by at least 21 points, or they have no shot in hell. They looked sloppy in the first half last week. They turned it on in the second half. They are going to beat a far inferior Penn State team that is only ranked because they are the Nittany Lions. I like Ohio State minus 12.
All right, as I said, I am on Penn State plus 12 here. We'll definitely get this going in the BetBuds group chat for sure.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
We'll get this commission free. I guess I'll start by responding to, you think that they have to blow, they got to blow everybody out. I feel like that's the case every year since we've had the playoff and everything in the BCS, when it's like subjective. And college football has been subjective for so long. I think that's been the mentality. So that's the first thing I would say. I don't think this is completely new this year. And I actually don't, with the way the rest of college football is shaping up, I feel like if you're Ohio State, you're looking around. It's like, okay, we got Clemson. We got Alabama. Are there 2 other teams that are like playoff worthy? Like if I'm Ohio State and I go 5-0, like I probably feel confident that I'm getting selected. And with the way the playoff community works, and it's ESPN, and it's all about how many viewers we can get on these playoff games, you couldn't fault someone for saying, okay, this Justin Fields led Ohio State team that's undefeated deserves a chance to playoff. No one's going to fault them for that. So that's kind of where I am with that. The main reason why I'm on Penn State here is just this game is always close, especially when it's in State College. It's just always been a really tight game. Even when Ohio State was going to the playoffs, even when Penn State won the Big Ten, like it's always been a super, super close matchup. So the last 5 matchups have been within 12 points. You got to go to 2015 to find a game that was, I think Ohio State won by more than 12 points. And the last time that either team covered 12 points in State College was 11 years ago in 2009. So when these teams meet at State College, it has been within 12 points for the past 11 years. And it's the way these two teams play. It's just how it's just one of these matchups every year. It feels like it comes down to the wire. I feel like Penn State, I think, what was it, 3 years ago, they knocked off Ohio State. Other years, it's been back and forth, like a field goal wins it at the end. Like, they've been just these really close matchups. And like you said, Ohio State did not look all that great. Their defense, especially, I know a lot of headlines. It was really weird. I saw so many headlines come out of this game. Justin Fields, perfect. Like, he threw 2 touchdowns. And I think he maybe ran for a couple, whatever. I think he looked really good, which is fine. Their offense did look really good, but their defense did not look that good against the Nebraska team that we really don't know what they are. But with Scott Frost, these past few Nebraska teams have been really, really sluggish on offense. So for them to struggle against Nebraska defensively, that's worrisome. And then you have Penn State, who just lost their opening game in a heartbreaking fashion. They're more motivated than ever to take it to Ohio State. They're at home. I don't know what the attendance is like in Pennsylvania.
Well, I'll tell you what, that was going to be my rebuttal to you. There's no whiteout this year. There's not going to be 120,000 people screaming at Justin Fields. And I'm looking at this as essentially a neutral site game, even though, yes, Ohio State is traveling there. But wow, are they going to feel relieved to show up to Happy Valley with nobody there to scream at them? And I like Ohio State.
Nobody?
I don't think it's anybody.
I mean, that is a good point. I'll give you that. It's definitely a good point. But even when these teams play in Columbus and Ohio State has the home field advantage, they haven't covered 12 points since 2015. And they play every year.
Mm-hmm.
So
I hear you. I just think they're a better. I think that Ohio State is way better this year. And there's just, with no fans in the stands, I just think it's going to make a huge difference.
Good.
Yeah. Okay. That's all my games. That's it. I'm done. What else you got? Rattle you off.
Okay. I'm on one more game, but I got 2 plays on. So this is Oklahoma State at Texas. Or no, they're home.
No, it's Texas at Oklahoma State, yeah.
I got Oklahoma State minus 3.5. I think this number's way too low.
It's dropped to -3.
Keep waiting then, I guess. -3, even better. So I faded Texas last week, didn't work out. But in watching that game, Texas didn't impress me at all. Texas is still Texas. They're still this very pedestrian, mediocre team. Baylor wasted so many opportunities. A lot of them were self-inflicting mistakes. Like, it wasn't like Texas. They won by 11. And I took it here +9. I took it in our group chat +10. And they win by 11. I think Baylor, I don't know what Baylor's doing, but I don't give Texas that much credit. So that's where I'm at with Texas. And then Oklahoma State, I've kind of stayed away from this season because haven't really kind of cracked what they are yet. Their defense had been really, really good, but they haven't really played anyone. And their offense had been pretty sluggish, but they didn't have their starting quarterback, Spencer Sanders. So after this Iowa State game, though, I feel like I do kind of get what Oklahoma State's about, and I do trust their defense. I'm in on Oklahoma State's defense, at least being the best defense in the Big 12. And that might sound like, okay, tallest midget, whatever. Mm-hmm. I actually think Oklahoma State has like a competent defense even outside the Big 12. Like, I think if they went to play an ACC team, they have a strong defense. So this isn't just, they're Big 12, so it doesn't need to be that good. No, they have a legitimate defense. So for that reason, I got Oklahoma State -3, and then I got the under 58.5, because I don't think Texas is going to score that many points. And Oklahoma State hasn't been this like Big 12 high-powered offense that they usually are. They're still getting things back in rhythm with Spencer Sanders. So I just think this is going to be, I don't know, like 31-17, 31-21. Like, I don't think it goes over 58.5 here. So we got 10 on the under and then 15 on the spread. And I think both these lines are going to move in my favor. As you said, it's already down to 3 for Oklahoma State. Keep letting that go. Texas is such a public team, and they just blew out Baylor, who was really good last year. So maybe they got even more people on that side. And then under 58.5, I imagine this line to just keep shooting up, because you do think of these two teams, you think of the shootout, you think of Big 12. I'm just telling you, man, this is going under. Oklahoma State unders have been, I think they might be undefeated this season, or at least they're definitely have a winning record, because their defense, I'm telling you, is legit.
So this is one of my paid plays, so I sit back.
Oh, you sit back. Hopefully you're with me. I'm not sure if you are. I fade Texas, and I lost last week, but they just are that bad to me. This Texas team is so gross. Reminds me of Auburn in a way. Just one of these kind of big blue blood schools. Great culture, great fans. Just not much happening on the field. So,
well, let's run back through what we have for this week. I'll start since whatever. I got Minnesota minus 19.5, Coastal Carolina's team over if it is 30.5 or lower come game day. Georgia, Kentucky under 43, UCF, Houston under 82.5. Jesus. Houston +3, LSU -3, Ole Miss -16, VT -4, and Ohio State -12. Those are my plays. And if you want more, if you want the paid ones, especially NFL, where we're 8-3 in our last 11 bets, 9-4 last week. When you include the props, the form site link is below, betonphilwood.com to get more information. Will, what do you got?
I am with you on Minnesota 19.5. I got Coastal Carolina to keep riding their hot streak and stay ranked, -2.5 at Georgia State. Got Kentucky +15 against Georgia at home. Iowa State -28 against the new Rutgers, Kansas. Even though that's a road game at Kansas, could be tough. It won't be. Kansas State +4 at West Virginia. That's one of my favorite picks of the week. UCF at Houston under 82.5. Like you said, that's a joke. Indiana -10 at Rutgers. Continue to fade Rutgers. LSU -3 at Auburn. Over 65.5 in that LSU Auburn matchup. Ole Miss -16.5 against Vandy. Penn State +12 against Ohio State. They always play close. Always, always, always. Then I got Oklahoma State -3 versus Texas, and under 58.5 in that one.
There you go. Well, there you have it. And if you listen to Will, go to betbuds.net and you can get information such as Penn State versus Ohio State. Will and I, that would be a perfect game for BetBuds. So go put your email address in so you can get more information. What is it, Will? Tell us. The beta goes next week?
It's betbuds.net. It's basically, we have our website that kind of breaks down how it works. It's a pretty cool system what we got going. It's super fun way to just bet casually with your friends. If you got like a $500 play that you really want to make, you got this hot tip or something, definitely go to a sports book, do what you're doing. But if you want to just get action on a bunch of games, have some small stakes bets with friends, no commission, this is the app for you. So basically we're releasing kind of like our first version 1 before next week's slate of games. And so to know when that is available and how to get it, you just fill your email into the form on our landing page. So yeah, definitely check it out. If you have any thoughts on how to make it better, feedback, that's what we're kind of in that stage right now. We're doing some testing with it. It's been, the results have been really great. People are having fun with it. So I've had people say this is the first time I've ever made money sports betting in my entire life, because they don't have the juice just bleeding their account balance. So it's really, and it's just more fun when I can rub it in Phil's face when Penn State covers +12. I can send a gift to him in the chat of like the baby dinosaur or something.
There you go. The baby dinosaur saying, not the mama. I love it. All right, everybody. We'll be back next week, and the Pac-12 will be back probably. And we'll be able to talk about Pac-12 and everything that's going on there.
Will be back.
And Miami will be back. So
lucky we didn't have NC State this week.
Yes. We did.
Because that could have been a fierce fight. I think it's good to have a week off since the mascot passing away. Thoughts and prayers.
I didn't even know about this. All right. I'm gonna talk to you off air.
The wolf, the dog, NC State. What was his name? Coley or something?
No way.
Yeah.
I'm ending this thing.
It died.